So I decided to do the European Union for my presentation. So let's start with table of contents. There'll be a general overview of the organization, its mandate and its goals, its international relationship, current activities, challenges and controversies, a summary of an analysis of a current article involving the EU, exploration of bias within that article, and finally a works cited page. So, a general overview of the European Union. The European Union's purpose is to create what is known as an internal single market, which has free movement of people, goods, and money inside countries that are in the EU. The EU is made of 28 European countries, soon to be 27, with the United Kingdom leaving the European Union. As you can see on the left-hand side, there is a map. The dark blue countries that are highlighted, those are countries that are within the European Union. And for a list of them, you see them on the right side. So, 98% of the EU's budget comes from their own resources, while the other two comes from unspecified sources of income. The way the EU comes to legislative decisions is through something known as ordinary legislative procedure. To quote their website, roughly, the ordinary legislative procedure proceeds as follows. The European Commission submits a proposal. The European Parliament, EP, and Council of Ministers, Council, will either approve or amend the proposal. If EP and Council cannot reach an agreement on the proposed amendments, both can amend the proposal a second time. If they still cannot reach an agreement, they enter negotiations. After these are concluded, both institutions can either vote in favor or against. So on the left-hand side, there is a chart of how it works. Ordinary legislative procedure, and on the right hand side you see where the EU has invested their budget. So the EU's goals, to quote their website again, their goals are to promote peace, its values, and the well-being of its citizens, offer freedom, security, and justice without internal borders, sustainable development based on balanced economic growth and price stability, a highly competitive market economy with full employment and social progress and environmental protection, combat social exclusion and discrimination, promote scientific and technological progress, enhance economic, social, and territorial cohesion and solidarity among EU countries, respect its rich culture and linguistic diversity. So how the EU achieves these goals. The European Union's main goal is to create social acceptance and economic harmony. Creation of the euro has benefited the economies of the countries with the EU and made trade between them easier. With a number of countries using the same currency, trade has become easier because countries are not worried about currency fluctuation between the rates. The EU also has removed additional taxes on trade, which also makes trade easier and benefits citizens by not having to pay more for goods. The EU creates social acceptance by not having an official language, which makes countries within the EU feel equal to each other. For example, if the EU decided to choose English as their official language, that would make countries that do not have English as their official language feel less valued compared to countries such as the United Kingdom. So international relationships, some examples, they work with organizations such as the UN to tackle issues such as climate change, human rights, etc. One example of their involvement within the world was in 2015, along with France, Germany, UK, US, Russia, and China, they settled an agreement with Iran where Iran agreed to not produce any nuclear weapons regardless of the circumstances. So current activities. The European Union faced controversy from content creators and tech companies when they put in place Article 13. What Article 13 is a law that requires media platforms such as YouTube and Twitch to filter out any content that may be infringing on copyright laws. The law faced criticism due to the fact that the writing of the law was extremely vague as to what kind of content infringes copyright laws. It also faced criticism because these media platforms do not have an algorithm to filter out content and requires the use of human resources instead. And for example, if they were to filter out a YouTube video, it would waste a lot of time for companies such as YouTube and Twitch because they have to invest a lot of resources, and that it will not make them any more money, and that is why they are upset with it. So right now, the EU is facing tension with a member in their union, Poland. The VP of the European Commission, Jyrki Katainen, said that Poland should stop treating the EU as a cash cow. Katainen believed that Poland did not make enough contributions to the EU, considering how much they have benefited. They've benefited through their economy. They have been given billions and billions of dollars, and Jyrki Katainen believes that they haven't contributed enough to the EU, and that's a fairly recent issue. So challenges. The EU faces disapproval from a lot of people within Europe. A survey showed 51% of people support the EU, while the other 49 do not. It's quite a large percentage of people who don't support the EU. On average, countries within the EU have a debt to GDP ratio of 0.867, while the target the EU set was 0.60. And if they have a large amount of debt and their GDP is less than that, or maybe slightly larger, it will slow economic growth and possibly cause an economic recession, which is against the main goal of the EU, which is to cause economic harmony, as they quote on their website. One of the biggest challenges they're facing, and it's quite recent, is Brexit. If Brexit were to happen, the EU would have less trading partners, and again, that would slow down their economy, which is exactly what they do not want. So controversies. As I said before in previous slide, the EU faced controversy with their recent laws, Article 11 and Article 13. Article 11 was a past law that forced companies to pay people for using parts of their content, such as headlines or paragraphs. The EU faced backlash again from companies such as Google, who threatened to take down their news services in Europe as a protest of the law. Article 13, as I said before, also created controversy, which is again a law that required media platforms to filter out content from other creators. There were protests from European citizens, and EU faced criticisms from media platforms such as Twitch and YouTube. So, article choice, I chose article from the Washington Post regarding Brexit and the recent issues that have occurred from that. Article analysis. The article provides information about ongoing negotiations between the Conservative Party, which is currently in power in the United Kingdom, and the Labour Party, which is the opposition for Brexit. A British Parliament has rejected Prime Minister Theresa May's proposal to exit the EU 3 times, and Brexit was voted in 2016, and they're originally scheduled to leave on the 29th of March, and that has not happened yet because of, again, conflicting opinions within Parliament. The two parties have not been able to come to an agreement about whether or not Britain should remain in a customs union with the EU. The Conservative Party is opposed to this, while the Labour Party is for it. The Conservative Party believes that staying in a customs union with the EU would impact trade negatively because of tariffs and such, and they wouldn't be able to expand with new trade deals globally. Labour Party believes it is good because it will avoid tariffs when they have to trade within Europe. Theresa May said that if an agreement cannot be reached by the parties, then the House of Commons will vote on different Brexit options. The longer the agreement takes, the more money taxpayers lose. So article bias. The main bias seen within the article is source bias. Since it was written by the Washington Post, which is regarded as a credible and reliable news source, however, it has a fairly liberal political stance, and a liberal stance would be more inclined to agree with the Labour Party, since that is a more progressive party and has more progressive views. It would disagree with the Conservative Party, which can infuse some bias within the article on what is right for the United Kingdom at this time. These are my works cited list. Majority of them have come from European Union's website, as they're very open. And that is it. Thank you very much for watching and listening to my presentation.